Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream on PLM, Design Without Disconnect. Let me share my screen here so you can see what we're talking about. There we are. So my name is Mike LaFleche, Principal Product Marketing Manager here and on Onshape. And we also have Mike Halladay. Why don't you say hi, Mike?
Hi, everybody.
We're really excited to demonstrate a completely connected from end to end in the cloud design and PLM environment that saves time and really streamlines your workflow going from design to production. So today we'll have some live demonstrations and we'll talk about a few topics that will really be critical to getting your products done quicker. You'll hear some new terms like shifting left, meaning we're gonna find ways of reducing time to market and reducing costs. So we're really excited to have you join us here today. I see so many people commenting here, so definitely add your comments. If you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, or on StreamYard, you can add your comments. We'll see them all here and we'll be able to answer your questions. So do not be shy. If there's a question we'll answer later, we'll make sure to bring it up then and let you know. But we'll be monitoring here, so don't be shy at all. Maybe just a little bit more about us. Maybe Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll go.
Sure. So my background is in mechanical engineering. My early career, I was focused on CAD. I think that's probably the main reason why I'm working with you on this presentation today. But about 20 years ago, I migrated from CAD and PDM to PLM. I've been with Arena now for about 8 years.
Nice. And I've been a CAD and PDM person and learning PLM, kind of another opposite, way. But I've been a long time CAD user. I've used SolidWorks, I've used Creo, and of course I've been here at Onshape now for about 10 years or so. I used to be a PLM manager at a couple of companies before joining Onshape, and before joining those companies, I was a long time SolidWorks reseller in the Boston, Massachusetts area. So I see so many people coming in from around the world. So thank you for joining in, as we'll jump right in. There you are. So today I mentioned this cost to delay and shift left philosophy. So there are some metrics that companies track that we'll be talking about here during today's demonstration, trying to link being able to find problems sooner, fail early, find problems faster, by involving product experts sooner in your design process. And most design tools out there today that are installed in your computer work on files. It makes it hard to share, and invariably people don't share until much later in their design process. This is that whole philosophy that we'll be talking about, that we're trying to solve, and we have solved. We'll talk about collaborating throughout this process, what formal and informal control look like, because there are times when you really want to have guardrails on your design process versus your early on in your design process, where you don't want to be handcuffed by very dictatorial processes that are for later in the design process when you're actually cutting steel, right? So we'll talk about that, and then how to get started. Definitely ask questions though along the way. I can see so many people from all over the world. It's so great. So what is this cost to delay? The longer it takes to find a problem, the more costly that problem is, right? As a design engineer, right? When you're early in the design process, you have the most control over what what design decisions you can make that affect the cost of the product, right? So when you're coming up with your initial concept, putting mouse to CAD, and conceptualizing your design, that's when you have the most control and the most flexibility and freedom to make those big decisions. And if you can involve other people at the same time, contemporaneously as you're doing that, wouldn't that stand to reason that you'd be able to find better information, like sharing with your mold supplier earlier versus later, so that way if you can actually make that part with that wall thickness, or sharing with your circuit board supplier or purchasing department the information in the bill of materials so that they can make educated purchasing decisions on suppliers and in finding alternate sources and things like that, right? So these kind of things, if you can do that earlier, this is going to be a boon to your business, because you're going to be able to get your product out quicker and also save money and frustration, as well. So this really saves time and reduces costs if you can kind of think this way a little bit more, right? And that's what we're going to try to do in today's demonstration. And here's just another view, of that, right? And maybe like, on the PLM side, like, what are some things that you've heard, Mike? When I think of PLM and like early in the design process, that's not the first thing that comes to mind, but like, if you were able to like conduct PLM like operations, like finding suppliers and getting your bill of materials ready and stuff like that earlier, what kind of things do you think would come to play, or what comes to mind on your side?
Sure. So, I mean, if you think about like a traditional design cycle, routing, approval, release process, and then your suppliers, contract manufacturers getting those finalized designs, somewhere after that all happens, there's a lot of risk involved in that, right? They're getting that late. If they find an issue with the design, something that needs to be changed, if looking at the graph, right, you're right when you when you find that after those processes happen. So, it's necessary that within PLM, and as you're working through this process, you can get those suppliers, those contract manufacturers involved early. So the ability to collaborate early on those designs using PLM is really important in shifting that to the left where the costs are still low.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. And the software out there today, like I said, was like, it's just really hard to do that if you're not using modern technologies and tool sets that are, kind of cloud native, really. That's like the number one thing that really helps it, is like by having a cloud system, this enables you to all be on the same version of the software systems that are being used. It enables the same design information to be guaranteed to be the thing that you're sending, right? You're not sending files that are disconnected, right? And if you're not using a system like this, it makes it very difficult to kind of move left, in this workflow, right? So, all right. So this is kind of like the story that we'll be telling, through some live demonstrations today. The first demonstration is all about making sure the design is synchronized across the entire product development platform, right? So an engineer, is working at Onshape, right? We're using Onshape here to do our 3D CAD, parts, assemblies, drawings, bill of materials, simulation, rendering, all the things that you would expect, in a CAD system. We'll show off a little bit of Onshape so you have a feel for that. Maybe just a show of hands, like if you want to put a comment in, if you're an Onshape user, feel free to throw that in the comments, just so I can get a feel for who we have on the screen. You don't have to you don't have to. It's, if you want to, just raise your hand. But Onshape, we're going to use Onshape for our CAD, right? And we're going to use Arena PLM as our cloud native PLM system to, get that bill of materials in the hands of everybody else that needs it in the company or external in the company, external to the company in the supply chain, right? So procurement is going to see that bill of materials immediately. They don't have to wait or knock on Mike's door saying, "Hey, where's the bill of materials?" Right? They can get it very, very quickly and easily. Manufacturing partners, right? Accessing component lists, engineering changes that propagate across all systems. That's what we're going to see here. So we're going to do an engineering change order process, a collaborative workflow that multiple people in our company need to sign off and approve on documentation before it goes off to the mold shop, for example, right? You want to make sure things are approved. So we're going to see that today. It's going to generate all of your documentation, PDFs, steps. So if you need that contractually for your jobs, right? So yeah, these are the things that we will see here today. And this continuous flow of information, it kind of eliminates the version control issues that you would see in a traditional check-in, check-out style process that you might be familiar with other PDM systems. So we'll hopefully see that, right? All right, so let's see here. Let's go right into it. I'm gonna go over here and Onshape, right? So here I am inside of Onshape, right? I can just browse around, see different things. There's different ways of viewing information, in Onshape, right? You have a document type view, you have a structure view. I enjoy the structure view for a number of reasons. I'm gonna browse into a folder here called products, and I have some subfolders here, but right at the top here, I have this drone, Mark II, and I can see that it's at Rev 1, part number 810-264, and I have other information about it right here. If you've ever seen a PDM or PLM system, Onshape is kind of giving you some of the PDM capability right here at your fingertips as a design engineer, right? But all this part number information and categorized information came from Arena PLM, and they're both handshaked and connected in my environment that I've set up. So here are the properties that go along with it. Metadata, like if you're using other PDM, they might call it a data card or a database record or whatever it might be. But you can see as I select through the product structure, right, I can understand here's the top level of the assembly. Here we have sub-assemblies and components that belong to it. And you can see the latest information, relating to all these components, right? So really nice that you have that right at your fingertips. You also have a where used capability, right? So in Onshape, as you're highlighting items, you have the where used tab, and I can browse through and see that, of course, the wing camera is mounted into the lower chassis, which is then used on top level assembly, which is also, there's a drawing of it as well. So that's another way of looking at the information in Onshape. And finally, you have your entire revision history of what's happened, right? You have who did what and when. You can view that release package for that one particular item and see, that I have under engineering change order 400-524, this wing camera assembly. It was a purchased part. We have all of our comments that went into this. All these comments were commented in Arena PLM, but show in Onshape, right? So this is, really close connectivity right there. So let's go into the actual model. So I clicked into it, and I clicked into it from that link of the released version of this particular drone here. And this is just a, I have this drone here at home, and, we measured it up and remodeled it here. And there's a few things that I want to do with it. Let's go to our comment list here inside of Onshape, and I can look at all the comments for the entire document. So the nice thing about Onshape is it's a CAD system, and a PDM system, but it's also a collaboration system, right? We can see all the comments. We don't need to go to a separate system to manage these images and checks and tasks that need to be done. This is informal collaboration, right? Informal ways of interacting with your design colleagues, right? If I wanted to, well, actually, I'll just put you in here, Mike. I know you're in here, right? So there's Mike, and I can say, hi, we need a PCB or whatever. I'm not going to make you do anything right now, but this is just an informal, collaboration, right? And that's how easy it is to assign an informal task to somebody. Mike got an email, and Mike is seeing stuff, and he would be able to join me and all that stuff in a document. So it's really cool that you have this right at your fingertips inside of inside your CAD system, right? So that's what I mean with informal collaboration, is like this kind of stuff, right? We're not getting approval processes yet. We will at some point. We need that, and that's what the PLM helps us with. All right, so let's actually go in and talk about the first thing that I want to connect to Arena PLM, and let's right now in Onshape, you're always working on a branch, whether it's this main branch or a workspace. So, if I look at this branch history here, I can see I'm only looking at one branch, but if I, let me just, that's all the changes. Let me show all branches here. You can see I have a bunch of, well, actually I have two branches. I have some change orders that have already happened on this DFM branch, this main branch. And in this main workspace, there's a circle at the top. And that circle means that I'm in an open workspace where I can make changes, right? So in other PDM systems, they make you open up the file, check it out, meaning it's going to copy all these files from a server down to your hard drive. And then you work on it locally, and you have edit rights on those designs while it's checked out. And then you check it back in, and it makes them all read-only and puts them on the server. In Onshape, you are always working in a workspace to make changes. You don't have to check it out or like get permission other than the permissions that are part of the design. And the permissions are very much like a Google Docs style kind of permission structure, as you can see. But if I look at that workspace, it's called main, that previous ECO that we were looking at for the released version of that drone is showing me everything as it was at that release point, and it's view only now, right? I can't make changes to release things. So this is the workflow in Onshape. You just open up a branch. In this case, I'm on the main branch with editing rights because I'm in a workspace, and multiple people can work together in Onshape. It's not a problem. It's just like Google Docs. And then when you release things, that's when you set things to named frozen moments in time, right? And that's our way of doing it, and it prevents a lot. It prevents a lot of like problems in workflows because multiple people work together. We don't have to wait. We don't have to pass a baton, wait for one person to finish something to do another, right? It's a really nice process. So one of the first things is the bill of materials is actually part of an Onshape assembly. So here is the bill of materials of this structured bill of materials. So I can see, here's the chassis, middle chassis, lower chassis. Some are gray and some are read only and some are read write. Because, if I look at this over here, I can see there's released parts. That's what those green labels are, right? So if I wanted to like rename a part or edit the part number or set a category on something or, change the material, I could do it from the bill of materials. And this is key to setting up the communication between Arena PLM and Onshape, is this concept of a category. Okay. So let me just go to a different, I don't want to script this one. So I'm going to go to a different example here. I have this medical stretcher, and here's the bill of materials for that. And, this isn't in the PLM system yet. I can tell because at the top of my bill of materials, I see 2 buttons, one to sync the BOM to Arena and one to show the BOM in Arena, and it's grayed out. Means it's not there yet. So you can see at this bottom weldment, fabricated metal, and it has a part number. Let's say I have a plastic part. Here's an ABS part, brake pedal, right? So I want to set that not as just a regular old part. I want it to be a fabricated plastic category. Okay. And if I do that, that establishes communication with Arena. These categories are connected to categories in Arena PLM. Now I can actually generate a part number that makes sense for plastic parts at my company. So all plastic parts get 432s, all screws get 472s, all weldments get 430s as their prefix, right? So let's go ahead and you know, that's essentially how you connect the systems. Of course, there's an admin tool where you connect to systems, right? But that is essentially now creating that connection. So here I can see I've done all that work on the bill of materials. So it's nice to be able to do it from the BOM. You know, you're actually working in the BOM for this. So to do this, like here's a good question from Joseph, if you don't mind me sharing it. Does the Arena connection work out of the box, or does it require a connector or just configuration? It's more of just configuration. You need to have, you know, a certain level of Onshape and Arena. So as long as you buy the right level of system, there are just all you have to do is just connect it, right? You know, it's an enterprise user control setting, right? You know, there it is. You know, I can, you know, sync stuff, and all the connection behavior is right here and managed from an administrative console that you can sign into, right? So that's essentially how you connect it. The connector doesn't cost extra. It's just you have both systems, you're at the right level of those systems, and you just connect the two. And it's as simple as that. No other software to install to make that happen. Right. I mean, I'm not speaking out of school there, Mike, right?
Nope, absolutely not. It's the connection itself is written into both applications, so there's no middleware, there's no integration. It's just they speak to each other, and through enterprise settings is how you set up how they communicate with each other.
Great. All right. So essentially that's what we've done to get this into the bill of materials. Now I can open it in Arena, but maybe Mike, you want to kind of go into more details about, you know, what we can do with the bill of materials now that it's in Arena. So I'll stop sharing my screen so you can completely take over on that side if that works for you.
All right. So let me know, Mike, when you see my screen.
All right, I see it. I'm adding it to the stage now. There you are. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, you know, here's the drone bill of materials that Mike has synchronized with Arena. And of course, we've got all of the structure that Mike created in his Onshape model replicated on the Arena side. And so when we talk about the ability to, you know, the concept of shift left, right? We think about that cost graph and shifting left and getting things done earlier. You've already seen a lot of collaboration tools that Mike has been able to show you that are built into the Onshape side of things. On the Arena side of things, we're introducing more information and access to more of the full product design. And so if we look at, there was a printed circuit board assembly that Mike had in his design that he uses for space claim and mounting and clearances and so on. And we've got that here in this bill of materials, but you see right now at its current Revo 1, there's no bill of materials underneath it. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to this PCBA, to the bill of materials tab on it, and augment the the definition of this bill of materials, right? I've got ECAD designers working on the design of this board. And so if I go from this Revo 1 to my working revision, you'll see that I've populated the bill of materials with components for this printed circuit board assembly. And this is really important, right? Because while you have tools to collaborate on the Onshape side, this isn't an area which you would, access or collaborate with in Onshape, but Arena extends that capability to a broader team to where you can work in this area. And so let me, kind of like what Mike did in the when he showed you the hospital bed, I'm going to switch to just another version of this PCBA so I can show you a little bit more of the capabilities that you would use with it. Associated with this printed circuit board assembly, I have, of course, the bill of materials, and associated with all the components on that bill of materials, I have sourcing information for those components. So I'm going to show you sourcing view of the bill of materials, where you can see manufacturer information for those components, manufacturer part numbers, and so on. Now, for all of these manufacturer part numbers, I have deeper information in Arena that shows here on these risk factors in this bill of materials. I'm going to drill into that in just a minute, but I also want to show you that at the top level, I specify sources, right? If we don't build printed circuit board assemblies in-house, but we use contract manufacturers to build those boards to our specification, we'll do the design work, we'll specify the components for this board, and then we'll share that with our contract manufacturers. So you see I have two options for contract manufacturers. I have a primary option and a secondary option. And so associated with the sourcing that I've already defined for this board, I can grant them supplier access to this record. And so with a supplier license to Arena, your contract manufacturers can log in and access the data directly in Arena rather than you creating exports, emailing those exports, or dropping them in a Dropbox or something like that. They get direct access to Arena. Now, the big advantage of that is the revision control that's imposed on this record in Arena ensures that they're always looking at the right revision, the right files that are associated with this revision when they do log in. So I want to show you one other thing. I'm going to open up the supplier in a new tab, and I'll show you another way that I have to provision access to these items. So Trilby is my contract manufacturer, and they don't just supply that board, but they supply many things within our product set. And so this is a list of all the products that they supply for us. From this view, I can select all or select a subset of these products and provision their access. I can share the effective revision with them with a button click, or if I'm working pre-release, trying to shift this process left, find issues early on, I can share the working revision of this item simply by clicking the button and sharing the working revision with those contract manufacturers. Now, I'm going to show you one other thing and kind of come back to something I mentioned earlier, and that's I'm going to click into the bill of materials and show you the risk view of this bill of materials. So I put the risk factor that was showing with my supplier items, and I've got a risk view in my bill of materials to really focus in on these risk factors. So these are all components that we purchase in bulk, that we stock, we build from stock, and so on. And it's always important for us to be aware of the status of these items, right? And so you see a list of items. I floated all the high risk items to the top of the bill of materials here, so I can really focus in on where I'm at risk and get information about what that risk is about. I can see a few things here that are active, but there's no stock, no purchase on those items, or I see an item here that's end of life. So let me just look at one of these, this resistor. you see this find button at the end of the column here. What that's going to do is it's going to find alternates for this resistor.
Wow.
And so I found 6. And when I view those, I can see those alternates here to the right of my current specified resistor. And these are alternates that are related. And you'll notice here up next to the manufacturer part number, it says full match. Now, full match is based off of form fit function on these specs that you see down here in the deeper information that's associated with this item. If I choose to use one of these matched items, I simply have to click a button and that will create the supplier item for that manufacturer item in my database. And this is great. I want to show you another item here, this integrated circuit. And this will really kind of highlight the importance of finding this early in the process. So I found 68 matches, but when I view those matches, I can see that it's not a full match, right? So again, based off of these specs, not a full match on those specs, which means there's going to have to be some redesign that happens, right? With a full match, that's just a drop-in replacement. All the design work is really continues as is. In this case, though, without it being a full match, there's redesign required, right? So the further to the left on that graph that you can find this issue, the sooner you can get that corrected, the lower the cost of making that correction is going to be.
Wow, that's really amazing. Just hitting that one button there and finding those alternatives. That's pretty new, right?
Yeah. So this is a new capability. It's called supply chain intelligence. It's built into Arena. There's 2 different levels of it. One for the base package of Arena, and one for the enterprise package. And if you have more questions about supply chain intelligence, get in contact with your Arena representative.
Perfect. All right. Let me add myself back to the stage here. So let's kind of riff on that story a little bit more. Let me back over here. So we saw the BOM synchronization. The next thing we want to do is, and maybe before we move on, this is actually kind of a timely question, maybe for you, Mike. All those items in Arena, like how did that get in there?
Yeah, so great question. So we have a partnership with a company called Accurus. They were formerly known as IHS, but they are a well-known provider of database information about electronic components. And so we're leveraging that data set within the bill of materials in Arena for you to be able to find that information early.
Great. All right. So the next step is, we're making changes. We're identifying things early. We've created tasks in Onshape. We've exchanged information already with Arena just by hitting the one button to send the BOM information. And by the way, when you send the BOM, it's creating thumbnail images. It's creating files at the same time. It's doing a bunch of stuff behind the scenes that you didn't even see. It didn't take over my computer to do it. It's executing on cloud native services, right? The same thing will happen with our formal control processes when we need to submit a change order. We start the change order in Arena, getting an ECO number, right? The team reviews it. Of course, whether it's in Onshape or Arena, depending on who you are, you can get to the information. And then you finalize that release, and Onshape is aware of all the release statuses, and you can see it in the tree with the labels and everything like that, right? So if we do that, let's go over here. I have a change. Let me just go to the analytics in Arena here, and I have a change management dashboard that's showing me all the changes that are happening in Arena. I always like seeing charts and graphs. I don't know about you, but I want to create a new change, or I actually have a change already waiting for me, I believe. Yeah, this one right here, ECO 532, right? So I have this created in Arena. And now I'm going to go to Onshape. I can find the right page. There we are. I'm just in my Chrome browser, right? I'm just swapping between windows. I'm on my Mac and a Chrome browser. Like, that's also kind of crazy and cool to think about in a CAD and PLM demo. So let's make the design changes that we need. So we were talking about the circuit board, right? So we have the main board. I'm going to isolate that. We can see we have an updated board in here, but we have no way of mounting it to our bottom component, right? If I look at this, this was a comment that I had here in Onshape. We need to create standoffs to go through the circuit board. And I also need to check the the bottom face and all that. So, or the wall thicknesses as well. So how would I get to this? How would I do that kind of work? Well, here I am in, this lower assembly here, and I can edit this in the context of the assembly. So I just right click on that bottom housing and go to the PC mount context. And it's going to the part studio. Onshape creates things in part studios. So you create a part studio with one or more parts. This is showing me the ghosted kind of graphics of where everything is at that point in time when I created that context. Okay. So I want the screw bosses. So I have a couple of points that are referencing. You can see the highlighted edges right here. This is just a sketch, a sketch with 2 points referencing the concentric location of that. And I want a screw boss. So Onshape, you can, manually draw a screw boss, or you can, use a custom feature. Custom features are one of the superpowers, of Onshape, where you can create, common features over and over again that meet your company's definition. I want this to go up to a face like there, and 3. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm not gonna win an award for plastic part design here at the second, but there we are. We have a screw boss on our part. It's referencing the circuit board. I also want to do a thickness analysis check, because I'm an engineer. I care, and the mold designer told me that if I, have regions that are thicker, there might be dwell points that occur. And look how quickly I was able to get a thickness analysis of this in Onshape here, right? And I can see over here we have, a variation in the wall thickness, showing that it's thicker in those regions, right? So you can use, there's different methods for coming up with this, but very, very cool that it's built right in to the software. So we see that I'm looking at those comments, and I can resolve those comments, right? Just like this. So I'm resolving Mike's comment here. I'm resolving this. So these are my informal tasks along the way that Onshape provides. And if I didn't have any of those checked off before I went to an official release, it would actually stop me from doing the release if I have certain rules and checks, set in my options, right? So that's pretty cool that even these minor tasks, instead of having 3M Post-it notes on your monitor reminding you what to do, it's part of the document, goes along with everybody, and we can kind of see it all here, and even go to the versions that it was set at ECO. It's really quite complete. Well, let me just go back to the main branch, and I'm going to get this ready for release. The other thing I need to do is just make a quick drawing of that as well. Let's go to, let's just, where was I? There's the drawing mark too. Okay. All right. So I have our items in here. I need to create a drawing of that part, stick it on a piece of paper. I'm just flying through here. I'm not going to, make a 100% drawing here, but we'll get something ready to go. I'll just put some dimensions in, between here. Show that in the shaded view. and put a rev table up here in the corner. That could be part of your template, of course. All these values are reading information that are custom properties from Arena PLM, of course, right? So let's release this. So, everything that we do in Onshape, if you're new to Onshape, is recorded, essentially. Like every single change, who did what and when, is in here. It's not, there is no save button. Everything's saved all the time. But these moments that you see are the moments of creating a labeled version, which is just like a line in the sand, nothing, no approval process needed, or release, in which there is an approval process needed. And it's going to just use Arena as the workflow engine to approve the release process. Like Onshape has its own, right? If you are an Onshape professional or enterprise customer, you have that as part of Onshape. But if you require multiple departments in your company, perhaps even across your supply chain, to sign off with, custom designed approval processes, that's where Arena PLM it really shines here, right? Because I'm just having Arena do the workflow instead of Onshape do the workflow. But to the engineer using Onshape, it's not any different, right? We're not making the engineer using Onshape jump through hoops in some completely different interface to get their work done, right? And that was like the main thought process behind this, because that was like always a complaint that we would get. We would hear this. We've been doing CAD and PDM for a long time. The people that work at Onshape and Arena, and this was the common problem. And if you take a look at this, look at what's happening. It's finding the bottom housing and the drawing of it, right? It's going to go to Rev 2. I'm going to give the part number the same as the part number right there, the drawing number. I'm going to just initially release it at Rev 2. I never had a drawing at Rev 1. And see this button right here, search for Arena change? That's what this is. Where did it go? Must have lost the page where it was at, but let's go to changes and see what the last change number was. 532. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm searching for Arena change 532. You see that? It just finds it for me. And look what happens as soon as I click that. No hands. It just filled out that form for me, right? That form at the bottom was the same information that was in here, right? In this change order. Same exact information now shows up in Onshape, right? And I can continue, right? I could add more things to the release, or I could just submit that for approval. And you can see what's happening here. It's starting to fill out relevant information, right? It's starting to build out the CCO. It's not a triangle yet. When it becomes a triangle, that means, it's ready to go to the next stage, essentially. You're getting notification messages here. This release is transitioning. It's doing a bunch of stuff in the background right now, right? That's what's happening when it's doing these transitions, and it might take a second or two to do. It's actually, creating, if I looked at that release in Arena, which I'll let you do that, Mike,
All right.
at some point, it would show us, actually, let me, like if I go into any of these things here, it's going to show us files and things that are related to, like there's a GLTF file. So there's like all sorts of different files that can be generated, PDF step. That's what's happening behind the scenes as you're doing these processes. And then if let's go to the release. Hit that. So I could submit it, Mike could as well. We could both be part of a process. Like I just submitted the change but maybe Mike, you want to be the one that hits the approve button. So what I'm going to do is go to Onshape and wait for you to do that. I can see things happening over here. And like if I were to click into this while this is happening in Onshape, you'd see that it's a pending release on the drawing. I might be too late though. It might actually be fully approved now. We'll see what happens.
I think it's in approval right now.
Okay, yeah, that's what it's doing then.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and I'll just go ahead and approve it on my side.
Yeah, perfect.
And by the way, in this process, I can include my supply chain here as well, right? So exactly. that supplier Tobii Technology that supplies my printed circuit boards can also be an approver on this change order. All right, it should be fully approved now.
All right, cool. Actually see it over here. It says released already. We're at Rev 2 for ECO 532 right there. By the way, from this release form, you can click right into any of these documents here. These are hyperlinks. I can go to the properties of it. I can go to the Arena item record from here, and I can export this as some other file, if I needed it in some other format for whatever reason. From the, I'm exporting the released one, not the work in progress. Kind of important to understand. But, there's the version right there. Load that in Onshape. I could also load it in Arena. If I click that button, and it will bring me to an Arena window as well, showing me the item master for that item in Arena. And you'll see, like, in Arena, you can go back to Onshape, right? So it's all a full loop, that's happening through this in here. There it is. So if I click the actual ECO right here, that'll show me the one with the watermark removed. And it would do that to the PDFs, of course, as well, that are being generated for Arena. So that's really the process in the like releasing something completely to production, going in, making design changes. It's a fully like circular process, right? So just to remind everybody, we're approving the workflow in Arena in this particular case. We initiated the release package in Onshape, and Arena kind of took over, when we filled out the ECO number at the top of that form. It's as simple as that to do that. Let's see. That's really the meat of like the demonstration of what we want to show. Let me just and we'll go through some questions. I see some, Anne's answering questions here. Thank you. Let's find, what was I looking for? My slideshow. There we are. So yeah, fully end-to-end cloud-based formal control with both systems working hand in hand, right? They're both PTC products. We saw the difference between informal collaboration, like just in Onshape with tasks and comments. There's many other things you can do in Onshape too for informal collaboration, like this follow mode where both Mike and I could be in the same document. And I could look over what Mike's looking over. I could look over his shoulder virtually, if you will. This is really cool stuff in Onshape. You can share, informally with people in Onshape. You just hit the big blue share button and share with your supplier if you want to. But if you want guardrails on that control, you're sharing approved information. You're sharing information that's gone through regulatory processes, and you're involving, your bill of materials, actual components, like Mike was showing. that's where Arena PLM really shines, right? You know, formal control, structured releases with extremely deep, full traceability. I didn't mention that both of these systems work both on commercial kind of environments as well as like controlled environments, like Onshape. We're running on AWS, right? For everything's hosted, right? Arena is hosted as well, and you can also get government versions of both of our offerings, and they both work together on that government offering. Like, which package do you need on the government offering for Arena, Mike?
It's just that we have a deployment on AWS GovCloud, and it's just so if you have that requirement for export control, then we would set up your workspace in the GovCloud instance versus our commercial instance.
Okay. Same thing for Onshape too. So we have AWS GovCloud, for ITAR type work. There's if you're interested in that, you want to reach out to an account executive, and we can make sure it's the right package for you, because there's different levels of government work, right? That you can do in the cloud, and some you can't, right? So these are things that we want to make sure that you're aware of. And Anne's answering a lot of good questions here in the chat. How about, this is a good one, Adam's question here, to have a full-time admin, or what's your experience with like administrating Arena? For Onshape, you don't really need a full-time admin. It's more of like you're setting up your users and teams. You might have somebody responsible for the system and adding users. It could be several people, but it's not like a full-time, like 100% of your day kind of job. Usually it's a part of your day kind of job. What about you on the Arena side?
Same with Arena. Only our largest customers have any full-time admins. The majority of our customer base has somebody that's maybe a super user that has admin privileges, and they'll spend a small part of their day doing admin work as needed.
Here's another one. Can we rev control work instructions in Arena? I mean, I'm thinking in Onshape, like you would create a work instruction that has models and like assembly instructions and things like that, and that would be certainly possible to send into Arena, but I don't know if there's anything special.
Absolutely. So in Arena, anything that's revision controlled in Arena is called an item, and at the major category level, that usually breaks down into documents and parts, and then you'd categorize from there. But that whole document section is all revision control documents. So if you have spec sheets, data sheets, work instructions, procedures, any of that kind of stuff that you want to revision control, you can do that in Arena.
Cool. I see a question that I might be able to answer live from Chris here. Not revision managed. I recognize this because I was going through this morning. Not revision managed is definitely a struggle for us. You can sync the data from the properties window part over to Arena. So yeah, if I go over here, stretcher, if I go to this column right here to add columns, I can add this column for not revision managed, and then I can see very quickly which items I don't want revision managed. And the reason why you'd want that is like if I go back to my drone to the rotor or the DC motor itself, like the motor is made up of 3 pieces. Just let that load up. You can see they're not revision managed, right? So like I only buy the motor. I'm not going to buy these 3 parts, but I wanted the 3 parts in Onshape because I wanted the animation. I wanted the rotor to go around the stator and be a magnet and all that. So like, that's what I wanted. So, it came in as 3 parts. So you just tell it not to be revision managed. And then when you sync the bombs and do the revision management, Onshape and Arena are aware of that now. It didn't used to be that way the whole time. I think that's fairly recent. Those I don't know how many releases ago it was, but more and more, every one of these little esoteric settings that need to be fully combined in concert with Arena and Onshape are being taken care of as more and more customers are using it.
Yeah, Mike, I think you did the same thing with the components on the printed circuit board assembly, right? They're not revision managed. You just pushed the board so that I had the level that board was at to work with, and then I populated the components that I got all the background data on and everything else from the Arena side. Exactly.
And the amount of information that you can send back and forth is, it's all based on categorized information. You can see you can hook up those properties right here. So this is Maurice's question. So yeah, you can see we're just hooking up categories, and Onshape has custom properties that map to those categories, and so does Arena, right? So we're just mapping those things together. So I mean, you want to make decisions. You don't need everything that's in Arena to be in Onshape, in my opinion. Most of the time it's a subset of information from Onshape would go to Arena. Some of the stuff from Arena is coming in Onshape, right? So,
yeah. In my opinion, it's you maintain in Onshape the properties that make sense to be in Onshape, and then you leave the rest to Arena to manage.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just gonna look through the questions here. A lot of questions coming in. I don't know if we get to everyone live, but we can reach back out if need be. Would you want to have those not revision managed? You just set the DC motor to show assembly only. I was trying to figure out which one to use myself. I tried both. I liked setting it not revision managed because I would never ever want that to be managed, the parts under it. So that was just my way of double diving on that one. Here's a good comment from Jason. An MBOM, only 3-bomb, where you can have two-way integration, the indirect materials in MBOM are uploaded in Arena and manually. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one. You might have some thoughts, Mike.
Yeah, so my thoughts on MBOM versus EBOM is PLM is really the system for managing the EBOM, and so we typically integrate downstream to something that makes more sense for the MBOM, an MES or ERP system or something like that.
Cool. Let's see, I'm doing a final scroll through the comments feed here. There's a lot of them. I know there's a lot of cost questions. Onshape pricing is very transparent up on the website. I'm not sure. I don't want to comment on Arena's pricing. I don't know what you would say.
Yeah, this pricing is also on the website for Arena.
Yeah. But yeah, it's software as a service subscription style pricing, and how long does it take to get started with Arena for a medium-sized company, Mike?
Yeah, so our average implementation time, I think, stands at 16 weeks, right? But it varies from very simple implementations that could be as little as 4 to 8 weeks up to about 20 weeks, for implementation.
And that's because they're getting somebody like you that's helping them along the way make decisions about how it should be implemented. It's not like you're doing installation for 16 weeks. It's like, it's more of consulting, like business.
Yeah, it's consulting, workshops. And honestly, the biggest reason for any delays in time during implementation is the availability of the customer for a workshop. So
nice. Yeah, it's really valuable. I've heard lots of great feedback from those workshops. It's the Onshape customers that take them are happy, typically, from what I've heard. Yeah, I see a few comments about Windchill. Windchill is another sister product, of PTC. So, another PLM product. Currently, there's no live thing like we have with Arena for that currently. So that's just the answer to that today. But, we're all the same company, so you might imagine things like that would happen someday. But currently, this is what I think it is our best-in-class offering for Onshape customers to connect their system to a live PLM system. They're both born in the cloud systems, right? bomb.com, it's been around for quite a long time, Arena. And Onshape now is entering, second decade of our existence. It's got lots of customers out there. So these are great questions we're getting here. So I really appreciate everybody joining us here today. What I think, if you go to each one of our websites, that you sign up for, trials or, learn more, whatever, button you click on our website, you're going to get somebody to reach back out to you so you can explore and learn more, on the platform. So thank you very, very much, Mike, for joining me today. And thanks to everybody around the world. I thought it was a great session.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
All right. See y'all later.